Here we are on Cool FM 104.1 and on Cool FM Live, the website. And we will also be on YouTube in the future with Cool FM. This is a brand new show. I am the host. My name is Robert Ishoy, and I have two incredible guests with me who I'm going to introduce in just a little bit. First, I want to introduce the show itself. What is this show about? It's a radio show. It's a video show, but it's not a song show. It's a talk show. And we are going to discuss a lot of different issues on this show in the future and tonight. And the topics are going to be serious topics, and they're going to be focused right here on Cochise County, where we live and what's going on in our communities. So that's what we're about. Now, I had to come up with a name for this show, and I was struggling with that. And I was working with three coworkers, and I was telling them about the radio, and they said, well, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I'm going to talk about all kinds of issues in our community. And they said, well, why don't you call it Issues with Ishoy? And I'm like, okay. So that's the name now. Now, if you don't like that name, you like it?
Yeah.
You like it? Okay.
Issues with Ishoy.
Issues with Ishoy. So it's kind of sticking. If you got another suggestion, I welcome you as the audience. Let me hear it. But for now, it's Issues with Ishoy. And we're going to have discussions. Okay, the topic tonight is a big one.
Yep.
We are going to talk about mental health. Mm-hmm. And if you don't think that applies to you, you're wrong. Mental health.
It applies to everybody.
I mean, this is a universal topic. A lot of times people think of mental health as only mental illness.
Yeah.
No.
But
or a disease.
Or a
like
disease.
something wrong with you disorder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's a whole gamut. I mean,
Yeah.
we all have certain issues that we have to deal with in our lives, unless you've had a perfect life. You got a perfect life?
No. Even with the perfect life, you still have the same neurotransmitters that can go out of whack that can cause the disorders just like that. You know, you can have an absolutely perfect life, but you're still going to have to deal with cortisol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely a universal topic. But we want to know the focus here in Cochise County. What do we have available to people that live here for help, for guidance? And I got to introduce my guest now, don't I?
Yeah.
So, okay, first of all, this young man sitting next to me, John Bateman, is representing the Warrior Healing Center right here in Sierra Vista.
That is correct. So I work with the Warrior Healing Center. I'm a psychological practitioner for them and part of their crisis team. So anytime there's a veteran or a person who has a absolute necessity for immediate intervention, we are capable of responding to that, and we bring a lot of resources, not just to the community and to our veterans, but everything from housing, your financial benefits, your food that is absolutely required. We cover down on any type of veteran issue, psychological as well.
Yeah. I've even heard housing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very interesting way that all actually pairs up, and I've never seen it work so beautifully in any other organization. So we have federal, so the HUD-VASH program is what provides housing to homeless vets or people on the cusp of becoming homeless.
Yeah.
And so we have a federal entity in here. We're a nonprofit organization, but we also have state-ran capabilities that are integrated within the Warrior Healing Center, and that gets to be combined with mental health capabilities, clinicians, counselors, all in one location. Usually these things fight each other. And, you know, we were actually sitting in a meeting yesterday, and I was talking with Tim Kirk, and he brought it up. He's like, I'm just sitting here looking around. There's nowhere else in America where people can actually sit in a room and not just be pulling each other's hair out, because everyone has the same goal. We are here to establish a better life for our veterans. The end.
Yep.
Airborne. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh.
Now, you're a volunteer, aren't you?
I am.
And you know what? I'm going to shake your hand right now, John.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, thank you for your volunteer work. I mean, that's incredible. That's a lot of time.
I can't come up with a better purpose for my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Like, all right, what am I going to do today? Well, I want to do this. Well, what's going to be more impactful? Oh, I can go help those people. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad they even took me on. It's going to be.
And we're going to talk more about the Warrior Healing Center throughout the discussion. But we also have a lot of people who aren't veterans in our community, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah? And so my other guest, a young lady, Jessie Bustamante.
Yeah, you
I
got
said
it.
it right. And she is, I'm going to give the long name. She is with the Southeastern Arizona Behavioral Health Services.
Yes.
Short
CBIS. Right.
CBIS.
CBIS,
okay. Which is right across the street. Oh, by the way, the Warrior Healing Center is
Paseo San Luis, right by the Boys and Girls Club.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you can just walk in the door, sign in as a guest, and say, I'm a veteran, I want help. Am I right?
Yeah, doesn't matter what the help you need is, we will find a resource for you or be able to provide that for you quick.
Now, at your place, I'm not a veteran, or I am a veteran. You know, it doesn't matter there. I walk in the door and I say, I need help.
Yeah, so absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or if you are a veteran. It doesn't even matter if you're purple or red, okay? If you come in and you're seeking help or you're seeking some sort of treatment or services to better your life, right, as we had mentioned, just finding a better way to live, not necessarily, having just mental illness or disease or whatever it is, that's basically what our purpose is, to provide those resources, opportunities for those in the community, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's family issues, whether it's, children, whether it's veterans, whether it's the disabled, right? Mm-hmm. It goes on and on, right? We provide group services, therapy, peer support, right? The case management side of care coordination, of helping people with housing, finding sources for them farther than Cochise County. It's phenomenal, right? So CBIS actually has different sites in different locations, right? And the cool part about it is that CBIS has built a tremendous bridge, and not just CBIS, but all the other organizations that's out there that I've came along, and worked with to better the community in general, right? So in my position, I'm a clinical coordinator. I actually manage the residential side of substance abuse, but it's a dual diagnosis facility, right? It is the first, I believe, facility here for treatment for individuals in the community, which is amazing because that's what we needed, right? Yeah. When it comes to people who do struggle with the addiction part and the mental health part, right? And the cool part about it is that if you go into treatment, there's always a step down to help you, to support you when it comes to the ending part of that chapter of your treatment and your process. And that's where the bigger and better things happen too, right? You go into, the other options of what services are next for you, and the purpose is exactly what he said. I wake up every single day and I'm like, what can I do today? Oh, I know what I'm going to do today, right? It's making a difference in the community. And I like what you said earlier when you were talking about Cochise County and talking about our issues, right? And I like to look at it as like, what does Cochise County really do, right? We know what we do when it comes to like the common society stuff, right? But what do we really do when it comes to our people?
And that's where we live. That's why we're concerned about our communities. Mm-hmm. Now, I got a confession to make to both of you. I got a confession to make.
I love confessions.
Okay. I'm 67, and I'm old school. And I will admit, for most of my life, I was one of those people that would put down counseling. I was one of those people who say, why are you seeing a counselor? You got problems, you should
or I don't need someone telling me how I feel.
Yeah, you just just straighten out your own problems. I was one of those people. I will admit I was one of those people. Now, my wife has been pointing things out to me over
no.
It's like, she gets papers about desert. I was in Desert Storm.
Okay.
Desert Storm syndrome, PTSD, and she's like, there's some of these things on this list, you might want to think about. And I finally did get with a counselor, and I picked the right young lady.
How did you know, though, in that moment? Like, when you finally made that decision, like, how did you know, like you said, you picked the right lady?
I didn't. I got one of those free sessions, like 15 minutes online.
Right.
And, yeah.
Oh, no!
And then, and I'll put in a plug for her. It was Gypsy Leaf counseling. Okay. And I started talking to her. And it's been amazing.
But that's what I'm saying,
been
though, is you
absolutely
don't know
amazing.
until you actually do it, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of people in the community, just in general, who hesitate to do that because they don't really know what the outcome is going to be, or they're not ready. But it's difficult for them to trust another person when it comes to helping them. And that's hard.
What I found was beautiful is I don't know her. You know,
Even
she's
better,
not,
confessions
yeah,
like
she's
no
not
other.
a family member. She's not my wife. She's not one of my kids. And I felt immediately she made me feel very comfortable. I was like, well, I can tell this lady anything,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
And I just and then she just kind of guides me to think about things myself. And matter of fact, this book, we'll talk about this book a little later because she suggested this book, which I have found is incredible. But it's been amazing for me, and and little things. It doesn't always have to be the big things. It's like, why do I say those things to my wife, you know? And why do I react this way when my kids tell me something, you know? And then you start to analyze yourself. That's the first step, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Self-awareness,
absolutely.
yeah.
Self-awareness, yeah.
You know, and one more thing. So I'm gonna say, if you're out there in the audience, okay, and you're listening to this, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, what's the status of my mental health? How do I know what without going to a professional? How do I know? And you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
I've got a suggestion, because in my opinion, as not an expert, the first place to look is your home. If you walk in the front door at the end of the day, what do you feel like when you go home? Are you feeling relaxed, safe, peaceful, loving? Or do you walk in the home and you feel depression, loneliness, anxiety? Because the home is where we're more ourselves.
More so, but I can tell you, you know, coming from a family where they were loving, right? And they were supportive. And I would like to say, you know, specifically like my grandparents, you know, just giving me pretty much the whole layout of like, I will always support you. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to do. Unfortunately, I walked through those doors, right? And I could feel the love, but I didn't feel it within myself, right? And I don't know at what point did I start to feel that way, right? Where I didn't have that security with myself. I was constantly feeling like I had to live to some expectation when it comes to the world, I guess you can say, right? And when I started discovering what you're mentioning, like, how do you know, right? Well, my life was chaos, unmanageable. I had nowhere to live. I chose to not live somewhere, if that makes sense, right? Rather sleep in my car than deal with my problems or my feelings and have people who love me tell me the truth, right? Like, hey, you're out of control right now. Well, let me be out of control because you don't know what I need, right? And I didn't know what I needed for the longest time, you know? And I do believe that is actually a good way of putting it, you know, where how can you tell? Like, look at the reality of things in your life, you know? Do you feel that? Do you not feel that? Is it the lack from your family side or friend side or whatever's in your life or your side? Because believe it or not, there's people who come from really great homes, but they just have their own struggles.
And so the home front is good and healthy.
Exactly.
And yet, and you're right, because you think about even siblings, you know, you have a home where things are good and, you know, two siblings are doing fine in life, but for some reason that third sibling... Right?
You can take
go ahead.
You can take that one step further, too.
I was that sibling.
They just ran a twin study on mental illnesses as it pertains, and, you know, we're able to derive that, you know, one person can interpret something entirely different, even having the same upbringing. So absolutely. You know, your nature versus nurture thing really comes into play on that one. Wow. These were identical twins.
And yet
that also went against the
one twin went one way.
Overarching aspect.
One with the other.
One twin went one way and the other one went the other way?
The evil twin and the good twin.
And yet they were raised in the exact same home environment.
And that's the same thing with my family, too. Like, I have, you know, siblings, too. And my parents, you know, specifically my mother, right? You know, she raised us girls, you know, as a single mother for the longest time. And we're all different. Like, and she did her best with all of us, right? And that was her best. But I was the one that it looked like I didn't get the best part of it.
Well, then I'm gonna rephrase my suggestion then. After you both talking, when you walk in the front door, think specifically about how you feel.
Yes.
When you walk into home.
Yes.
When not your relationship with your family, but how do you feel? And I don't care if you're single, married, or even have kids. When you go home, that is when you're taking all the mask off. You know,
Yeah.
we do tend to have masks on when we're at work and social life. We're home. That's the real us. What do you feel?
Well, you can notice that on the drive home too.
Yes.
Sometimes you're like,
there you
I'm just
go.
going to do under the speed limit because I don't want to embark upon this entering into my own house
Yeah.
type thing. Like,
Yeah.
It depends
It's
on
true.
the stress levels that you are going to be facing as soon as you come in there.
Yep. So there we go.
It starts with you, basically. This is something I tell people on a daily basis. You know, they always say, well, Jesse, how do you do this? Jesse, how is this? Like, they always want the answers to the questions, right? And I always tell them, the answer is you. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, it starts with you.
Yeah.
Everything else around you in your life, you know, will mesh together. And it's going to be different. You're going to feel different about things. You're going to think differently about things. You're going to talk about things differently, right? And I'm a primary example. I've lived that experience, right? Where I thought life sucked. Let's keep it real, right? I thought life sucked because of the way that I felt within myself. And when I started realizing what I was capable of and I made that decision to actually like live, it was a whole nother thing. Now I look at the world differently. I love conversating with people. I talk differently. I walk differently. Like everything is 100% different, even prior to me struggling with the addiction that I had for 12 plus years. You know what I mean?
And I think you're both a really good example. I'm going to share another experience. All I got is life experience, and you guys,
Us too.
You guys have a lot of but my first marriage back in my 20s. It was a long time ago, way back. Anyway, my first marriage, I went through a divorce.
Yeah.
Not only did I go through a divorce, but I also was going to school, learning a lot of new things. Even went through a change in religion. So I was kind of a basket case, okay?
Wow.
I mean, I had a lot of emotions, up and down. There were even times I even thought about suicide, to be honest, you know? I've been there, you know? But I had this experience where I met this one lady and we went on a date. She had told me that she was separated, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, so am I, so no big deal. And we were at a bar and with another couple, and her husband showed up.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And I'm a big guy. And I was even bigger back. I mean, I was a bodybuilder back then. He was just a little guy. I could have just brushed him off, you know, like lost him. But I saw the pain on his face.
Oh, yeah.
I saw it, and I knew that pain. Because I'd been there, you know.
Yep.
I ended up spending 2 hours in the parking lot talking to him. And I abandoned my date.
I mean,
I told her, I said, get a right
choice.
You know, now I don't want to sound like a hero because there have been plenty of times in my life that I haven't done the right thing. But that time I did do the right thing. And he was hurting. And I knew he was on the verge of doing something really stupid.
But did you know that's the true definition of humanity? It really is. Like, you know, as people, you know, seeing that, right, you know, within each other and helping each other and supporting each other, and you already were doing it.
And you know what the beauty of it was? And I went home, I go to bed, I woke up the next morning, and I like, wow, that helped me.
Yeah, it does.
And I was like, me helping another human being helped me with my issues.
Well, you're able to internalize the whole process
Yeah.
of the hurt that you must have felt when he showed up as well.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
not going back into like any type of isolation, but actually meeting with something that would have been a confrontational type thing. It was a courageous move you made, and
Absolutely.
the right move. Absolutely.
And it probably saved you and a bunch of other people in that situation.
And so I learned that lesson. I'm going to share it with the audience. And I want to just if you've just joined us or joined us recently and you're like, who are these people talking on the radio? Well, my name is Robert Ishoy. This is a brand new show on Cool FM. And I have two guests with me, John Bateman with the Warrior Healing Center and Jesse Bustamante with the, I'm just going to say it short, CBUS. CBUS, okay.
Southeast Arizona Behavioral Health Services.
Get it, John.
Got it.
And we are talking about mental health regarding everybody, and especially here in Cochise County. That's the topic for today.
It's a very good topic to be jumping onto. I know Cochise County just got a pretty big grant for revamping mental health services for adolescents, that being age 12 to 26, so all the way up until the prefrontal cortex is developed.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that we're here right now, because we might be capable of influencing and at least seeing where that transition might lead this county.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the work we do for veterans is fantastic. I got to tell you, reading this book though, the body keeps the score. I'm not selling the book, but I just found it to be fantastic.
It's highly recommended for veterans.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So we're all together on this book, and it's really good. But it's also very disturbing, I got to say. I tend to have a bigger heart for kids than anybody else, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you read
they're
in
pure,
this,
they're like they're innocent, they're just like freshly in here into the world, and believe it or not, they can also be like the biggest target, I guess you can say.
Yeah, and that's what's so disturbing. The number, I'm not big on statistics, but they give them in here the percentage of especially young women or little girls that have been abused, and what they go through and the trauma that they're going to have to deal with, and they need help. I mean, that stuff's disturbing. And I don't know if you remember, I was so angry. I wrote the governor of Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you remember, there was years ago, I just thought of this, and I hate to tell the story, but it's disturbing, but it just shows you how many people need. There was a young girl that from a couple in Tucson that had a disturbance, so the child services took the child away and gave her to a couple here in Sierra Vista. And the man of that couple was molesting the 5-year-old girl.
Okay.
They finally caught him, took the girl away, and still didn't give her back to her parents, but they gave her to another lady in Tucson who ended up burning her. And,
gosh.
And you're like, okay, that girl has gone through so much trauma, and she needs help. She needs professional help.
Yeah.
We need to provide that for kids.
Absolutely.
Everywhere.
Absolutely.
It should not even be a question of funding, services. It should be automatic. Children to go through that kind of trauma, get the help they need. Period. I mean,
and believe it or not, too, speaking of children and them having that ability to get the help that they need, right? I believe that a lot of parents need those resources too, right? Like anybody that's an adult with a child, I think that they have to be open to those resources. And some of them, a majority of them too, whether you're young or you're older, aren't even aware that they're probably out there, because that is not a typical topic that people like to talk about, right?
That's why we're here.
Exactly, right?
It's a taboo topic.
It's the raw stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I like to call it that because it's the truth of reality of some things in this life, I guess you can say. But I think it's so important, just like you said, with the children, but also for the parents too, so that they also have that support, but they also have the resources to support their child, because sometimes I can imagine being a parent and your kid, you just see these signs or behaviors, or even you within yourself as a parent, you're struggling and you don't want to tell somebody, right? Like, I can't even take care of my kid right now, right?
Yeah.
Or something. And then you think the worst if you told somebody, and then they fear those kind of things of happening, right? And they don't know what the answer or the solution can be for that. And the solution and the answer is getting that help that they need, knowing those resources are available to them.
And they're available to all of us.
Yeah,
Again,
all of us.
As we said earlier, it's, now you've been wounded. I'm gonna assume you've been wounded in combat.
What?
I don't know what makes me assume that, but John, he's gonna show you. Okay.
Cool.
Both legs.
Yeah,
Both legs.
the other one doesn't come off so easy.
Both legs. Okay. So I think I
do
can
not
safely
get to share in the honor of having this happen in combat.
Oh no. Okay.
No.
Okay. But it was still trauma.
Made 2 tours, perfectly fine. I was actually EOD, so when I was in the hospital after getting ran over by a car on a highway, changing a flat, all my buddies got to call me because most of my buddies from EOD, they're missing limbs, and they're like, "We got you anyhow." I'm like, "Too soon, man. I'm still in the hospital."
But you survived it.
it.
And what did you do with that, you surviving? Like, how did that hit you? The fact that, you overcame that, technically. Like, you survived something that most people don't.
You have 2 choices in those types of situations. Either one, you become embittered about the situation,
Oh,
how it
yeah.
unfolded, and then I give into the wheelchair, and I blimp out and die of a heart attack.
Okay.
That's the end of that road.
Yeah.
The other road is, all right, let's take this on. Let's try to find some type of purpose where I can make a meaning for the residual life. That doesn't necessarily involve me having to run around. That's what really got me in. Actually, I have to coach softball later today, but that's another story.
Softball's awesome. But that's overcoming. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And it's like, I like to say that, one of the most powerful things that an individual can do in this lifetime is taking their traumas or their past experiences that endured like something like that to severity of your life changing completely and using it as a tool to make a difference. And that is the key, I believe, for those kind of things in society and the community.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, opposing force to involuntary stress on the psychophysiological aspect is voluntary confrontation.
Yes.
So, yes, this sucks. What am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
I got my
I'm
own.
going to get up and learn how to use these damn things. And, no one's seen me on a walker in like a year. Pretty happy about that.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I got my own hero.
Yeah.
She's probably going to kill me for bragging about her, my daughter.
Aww.
So my daughter, 20 years old, 18 years old, she was born with one kidney. Ruby, the one that, by the way, I'm going to get a little
Ruby's
plug
Divine
in.
Chocolates?
Yes, Ruby's Divine Chocolate. This show is
Love that
sponsored by
place.
Ruby's Divine Chocolates out on 92. Gourmet chocolates and much more. We have all kinds. Anyway, there's my plug
Fantastic
for
treats.
Ruby's
Nice.
Divine Chocolates. But anyway, so Ruby, who the store was named after, 18 years old, kidney failure. So she goes to dialysis 3 times a week. And she's my hero because I think when I was 18, if I would have been going through that, I'd have been, like you said, bitter, angry, feeling sorry for myself. She's the
Bitter and
opposite.
resentful.
She's the opposite. She's living her life to the fullest, and she's just she's my hero. And then I think
That's
about what
fantastic.
she's going through, and then I think myself, I'm like, okay, I can deal with my stuff. My
Gives you a little bit of motivation to
Yeah.
get through that day, doesn't it?
just my daughter's a better example than I am, so I'm proud of her.
And I respect that too, because coming from somebody who was diagnosed with a heart condition, because of my substance use, during that time frame of me also being on dialysis, learning how to walk again, I was paralyzed for 3 months, and I didn't believe that was going to happen. And I remember getting up out of that hospital bed and like, yeah, right, I'm going to walk, like you're talking, right? And I was like, I fell straight to the floor, completely urined on myself, right? And I just started crying. But at that point, right, I didn't feel that I had the fight in me, right? I had the opposite of what your daughter has, like being brave and courageous. Mine was more like, okay, I already damaged myself this bad, so what is the point of living, right? And that's hard to say, and some people are like, oh my gosh, or there's some people out there who are like, well, you did it yourself because you were on drugs. Oh, I know I did it to myself, right? But that is how bad and severe that like mental health can lead to that point, right? There's people who can take that and be strong and courageous and be the example of her. And I think that's phenomenal because at that age, at 18, right, and me being at the age of, I believe it was 25 when I endured that, man.
But look where you are now.
Look at where I'm at now, right?
Look where you are
How did
now.
you pull
Right.
yourself
Yeah.
out of that?
Oh my goodness. So
Was it incremental steps, just small things, building a little bit of resilience?
do you know where I pulled myself?
Where
Where I
it?
pulled myself out of this? Because when I had left that hospital after being in there for months at a time, I lived there, man, for a long period of time, right in Tucson, Banner, and as soon as I got out, my plan was to pretty much keep doing what I was doing because I didn't want to feel it anymore, right? I didn't want to feel that pain of I was killing myself, right? And it only led to the point where when you had mentioned, right, being suicidal, right? Never in my life, even no matter what I did or what I had gone through, did I ever really think about something like that? Because I was already slowly killing myself with drugs, you know what I mean, on a daily basis. Not only did I develop a heart condition that I'll have for the rest of my life, but it got to that point finally after 12 plus years that I was planning out my suicide.
Yeah.
Never did I think in my mind, I would be saying, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. This is the time I'm going to do it. This is where I'm going to do it. I mean, planning it all out. And I just remember thinking about that moment to where I don't know what happened, but it just clicked. and it said, I can't go out like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just can't go out this way because I can't picture, the thought of like maybe my grandmother not knowing, where my body is, or like just all those things came to me. Right? And not only did I not care about myself so much at that point in my life, right? Something had to give. And it wasn't my life.
And it came from deep inside.
Deep inside, right? You just have you have to look at the severity of it within yourself, I guess you can say. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you.
You also got a perspective of what it would look like for the outside.
Yes, and
like the other impacts.
Yes,
Yeah.
And I can't even. People say, well, Jesse, what made you really like turn around? I said, I can't tell you. It just happened, like that, like a snap. It just happened, and I am lucky that it just happened because there are people out there where it doesn't happen. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think your point was real good. I've thought about that. Sometimes if you can look at yourself in the big picture.
Yes.
Like you zoom out and look at your own life and not,
It's hard to.
It is hard. It is hard.
Really hard to.
But it's miraculous.
It's absolutely there, though.
Yeah.
Every person you've interacted with, you were able to make a mark on their life. And, them seeing on the news that you are no longer with, it brings sadness to every interaction you had.
Oh, I love that.
Not just the people who are so close to you, your family and close friends, but every person becomes...
Because really it comes down to each other. I mean, people. I mean, our relationships affect our health, our mental health. Our mental health affects our physical health, vice versa. Every relationship we're in affects our health. And there's just a lot of people not being nice enough. I mean, if we are nice to each other, and I'm oversimplifying it maybe, but if we are just nice to each other, all of us would feel so much better about our mental health.
No, yeah, absolutely.
But then you got I'm going to hit you with some salt, okay? Then you got the ones that say, well, if you're just too nice, you're going to get walked all over. People are just going to take advantage of you. No, look, dude. Hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
Okay? That's what I like to say all the time is that hurt people hurt people. I hurt every single person that I came across because I was hurt. Right? And who was I to blame them? In reality, who was I? Right? And it's the truth, though. But I can tell you that it really does make a difference when you look at people in a way of where you recognize, what humanity really is, being humble and kind of understanding where people can be in life, the challenges, the struggles, whether it's, maybe someone outside who has nowhere to sleep at night. You know what I mean? Who knows? They're probably not asking you to give them all kinds of money. I mean, maybe they are, so be it. Yeah. But in reality, you have to look at it as like, wow, how can I just make this person smile at the end of the day? Or how can I maybe just bless them today, right? Or how can I, show something different within myself? Because like you said in the beginning, right, it has a lot to do with us, right? And it makes us feel good when we do those kind of things. When we're mean to people, how does it make us feel? Yeah. I mean, it depends, right?
Doesn't make you feel good.
I mean...
you just gave me another introduction to another topic. So on this show, we're going to talk about a lot of different issues. And my view on things is our society at large is a challenge.
Yes.
There's a lot of things in our society that look broken to me. And I've been around for a long time. I've seen a lot of changes. And it's like things are broken. What can we do to fix them? Because all these things are bombarding us all the time.
Yeah.
So some of the future topics I'm going to talk about, one of them is going to be our insurance industry. I mean, if that hits a nerve. Now, if you are somebody out there listening to the show, again, we are on Cool FM 104.1. I said .1 again.
It's okay. We're going. Oh, okay. Right in the waves.
For 104.1, I'm old school.
It's a dot.
It's a dot. It's a dot. I see it looks like a dot to me. Dot's going to kill me. That's all right. And also, we are on Cool FM Live, Facebook, and on YouTube.
Yes.
So if you're watching the show and you have a background in insurance, whatever background, maybe you've dealt with insurance companies professionally, maybe you used to be in the insurance industry, I want you as a guest on my show because we are going to address that topic in the future and we're going to get real serious about it. And I'm actually got some ideas how we can maybe change it. And it's kind of
We should
radical.
probably do a whole separate section for VA insurance. With a panel, maybe.
Well, yes, and we are going to focus again on Cochise County. What can we do right here in this county? Because it's insane. It's insanity, especially being with my daughter and being through the whole health issues.
Yeah.
I have learned, and the VA, I have learned so much about, you're kidding.
Insurance, yeah.
This is how this works?
It's rough.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
This is a joke. It's a
Yeah.
joke. And we need to fix it. And if I can't fix it, you young people, listen to the show and I'll give you some thoughts. You can think about it and maybe we can make some changes in the future for the future generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's insanity. So that's one topic. Another topic, I'm going to get another plug in. Criminal justice.
Woo!
Oh, yeah, we're going to tackle that one.
How'd you know? I'm just kidding.
So, again, if you got a background in that field, or I don't care. When I say background, maybe you've been a victim of the criminal justice system. Maybe you worked in the criminal justice system. I want to hear from you. You could be a guest on this show, and we'll talk about that topic.
Yeah.
So those are
I think that's going to be a saucy topic.
And again, all these things affect mental health.
They do, actually. They absolutely do. And you know what's interesting about, talking about mental health? There's so many different forms of mental health, right? It's just crazy, coming from my experience and working in the field and, what I really do is it's not predictable, first off, right? It really isn't. And what I mean by as predictable is tomorrow you can walk in like this, right? And then the next day you can walk in and your mental health is completely on a whole nother level, right?
Right.
And it's not like something you just predicted or manifested, right? I hope not.
Yeah.
But it changes quite frequently, for individuals. And it has a lot to do with what you just said. The things that are out there,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The things that are happening in the world. And that's what influences it too.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And
So
some
all
of the
those
smallest things, like you mentioned, hey, if you see someone on the road, you can try helping. You mentioned, hey, give them anything you can.
Yeah.
Even if you just have a conversation with them, the
Mm-hmm.
impact of just conversing with people in need can be a life or death situation.
Yeah.
You can absolutely save a life by just saying, hey, how are you doing today?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
And check this out. Somebody had said, I came across, he said,
Community.
I will never give those people on the streets that panhandle, right, with a sign or whatever, because they can work. They're out there on their, not to offend you, but their legs, right? And they're walking and doing it. They could work. And I'm like, well, how do you know that in reality, right? How do you know that they're not, people who do struggle with the VA, right? Or people that have lost everything. Or maybe they're just people who mentally cannot get themselves to build or keep that stability. Or how do you know? Maybe that's just how they want to live in reality, right? That doesn't mean we have to sit there and criticize them and tell them that they're down here comparison to you being up here. Absolutely not.
Judge them
If somebody
to
went up
see
to you
them
and
in their
said,
position.
by the way, I choose to live on the streets like this, right? And it's just something that there's people who say it's not their choice, but I have came across people who said that was their preference. And you know what I said to them? Guess.
Good for you.
No. I said, either way, in the end, I still love you and I'm here.
Yeah.
And I walk away.
Yeah.
Because the thought of being able to say that to somebody, regardless of their situation, is just so genuine, right? And authentic. And it's that is the real, feel good kind of oh, wow, somebody thought of me without even knowing.
And I hate to say it, but the human
Yeah.
race, we tend to be very egocentric.
Yes.
And when we see people struggling in life, to kind of, I think it's even a defense that we like to kind of blame it on them.
Yeah.
Well, that person's struggling because they weren't
Yeah.
smart enough, or they didn't work hard enough, or they didn't try this, and you have no idea what their life has been bombarded with. I mean, are they a veteran that came back from war that saw terrible things and bringing home a ton of baggage that they're still dealing with? Are they a victim of childhood abuse that they've never been able to get over and deal with? Are they somebody that just lost a job at no fault of their own? I mean, to
Or
be
just
honest,
with a bad attitude.
there was a
in
time in my
reality.
life I slept in my truck.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you've been there and you understand, and I actually was working. at the time that I was technically homeless. But it was circumstances. It was in Las Vegas, by the way. It was in circumstances, you know. Sometimes it hits you, and you just look at these people, and we're too egocentric.
We are, and life can be tough, life can be rough, whatever you want to call it. And I like to look at it as we always have to learn to kind of like see past, you know, like our mistakes, or, you know, looking at someone and where they, you know, were at, or where they came from, or what their situation is then. Because if, in reality, if you look at those people, if they don't have hope, right? If they just don't have hope themselves, right? What good is it if you don't have hope either, or faith for them?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you can't see past maybe the dirty clothing, or like for me, you couldn't see past the drug addict, right? Or the criminal, or the person that was in and out of jail, or, you know, me going in. I was trying to be a good person in society, right? That was one of my goals when I got into treatment, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to probation. I'm going to show up and pay my fines like a normal person. And man, I got treated like crap. I'm sorry. I will be honest. And they were just looking at me like, what do you want? What do you need? And I'm like, oh, I'm here to pay my fine, you know, all like, okay, well, okay, you know. But it's rough because it's like, even at times, people just can't see past that, right? You know, like people who do go through those things in life and they are trying to do better, it's really hard at times when people do that and they can't see past it, or the system, right? And it's kind of like, oh, well, you're a felon. I don't want to be around you. You're a criminal. Well, I've made mistakes in my life. Yeah, I've done some pretty scary stuff to myself, you know, with my addiction, but that doesn't mean that's who I am. That doesn't define myself in that situation. And if somebody can look at somebody and say, oh, well, that's what you're always going to be. That's what you've always done. You got it wrong.
Yes.
You got it wrong.
I think those people also know they have it wrong. If they look at themselves 5 years ago, they're a whole different freaking person, or 10 years ago.
Maybe.
Like, change
if they're
your
not,
course.
maybe they need to change because they're grumpy or they have something to say.
And, you know, and in my opinion, I could be wrong. I mean, there are some people, and we can look at history, you know, people like Hitler or, you know, anybody that are evil. They have gone to the point where they commit such atrocities that they're evil people. But that's far and few in between.
Oh, the vast majority of the people in this county are actually just really good people.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a growing trend of absolute malevolence on
Right.
Hitler's scale.
Yeah.
That's happening because someone cut me off going down front.
Yeah.
Oh,
Boulevard.
gosh.
Yeah.
I felt that though before. Okay?
So very few people, I would say, in this world that we live in are truly evil to the point that maybe they're beyond help. Most people, even if they have a history of crime, make mistakes. And I did corporate security. I used to interview a lot of people that made mistakes.
Oh, man.
You know, and they're human beings. They made a mistake, you know, and you're going to have to go through some things to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's part of it. And we'll talk about that when we get to criminal justice. Maybe some ideas how we can approach it better.
Yeah.
But anyway, those people sometimes you just need a little lifting hand.
Yeah.
You know, a
I'm
little
glad
guy.
you brought up the element
Yeah.
of hope. I got a really good example for that one.
All right.
So in the 50s, and this one's a little grotesque of an example, but in the 50s, they ran a test on hope. They took a group of mice, it was 12 mice, and put it into a conical jar. A conical jar was full of water. They left the mice in isolation, all of them were drowned by 8 minutes. Next group of mice, they threw in. They came in at 2-minute increments leading up to 8 minutes, took a total of 3 mice out. Do you know how long the residual 9 mice were able to tread water?
Tell me.
26 hours.
Wow.
That's not an overstatement. That's not an over-exaggeration. They went from 8 minutes with no hope to 26 hours thinking that there was a shred of hope coming because someone pulled one out. So you never know what just one kind word of encouragement can give to anyone you encounter.
You're gonna make me emotional, and I told myself I wasn't going to. But when you're talking about the fact of pulling just one out, just one, right? And I remember that feeling. You know, when I started all this, I remember that person in my life that pulled me out and gave me that opportunity to have hope, right? And they believed in me, and this is I'm going farther than 26 hours. I mean, look at where I'm at.
It took one person.
Oh, it took. And did I ever imagine that it was going to be this one person? Absolutely not. This person was in treatment with me, got out, turned his life around, and helped me. He was that person that showed up when I was planning my suicide, and he pulled me out, and he said, Jesse, tell me one thing that's worth living for. And I don't mean your dog. I don't mean, you know what I mean, a boyfriend or whatever the heck. What is worth living for? And I looked at him and I said, I can't tell you that because I don't think there's anything worth living for at this point in my life. And he said, you're wrong. And I thought about it, and he just kept coming to me every single day, bringing me into his office, talking to me. And he's like, I need you to believe this. And I remember that I laid in bed one night and I said, he's talking about me, that I'm worth living for. And I ran to his office and I said, it's me. And he goes, oh God, it took you a while, right? Probably 26 hours. It took me 26 hours. But that was that moment of that one experience that I have had with pulling, someone out and having that hope, because it's real.
And, and we have no idea that, like you said earlier, so many interactions with people.
Oh, yeah.
It can be a casual 5-minute interaction, and you might leave that person in a better state or a worse state because you have no idea. I mean, if we just are kind to each other, respectful to each other, what a huge difference, just 5 minutes sometimes can make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. It can make a tremendous difference, and I can't even imagine, what if everybody came together, because that's how I look at it every single day, right? Wake up and I'm like, can you imagine? Every day is a new opportunity to do bigger, better, and more. And if we learn to just come together to do it all, can you imagine what the world would be like? Right? Come on.
Yeah. And so
and I think that can be built here in Cochise County.
It can. And
it's small enough to really be able to drive that community.
Yeah, but it is building because being born and raised here, man, I could tell you, it's growing.
Yeah,
it is growing. So
and you're absolutely right. We focus right here where we live. I'm not worried about Washington D.C. I'm not worried about other part. What's going on right here? Are we helping each other in Cochise County? This is where I live. This is where you live. This is where you live.
Yeah.
What are we doing to help each other? What can we do to make things better?
Yeah.
What needs to be fixed? How can we fix it? These are all things we're going to tackle on this show. Yeah. And we're not going to stop.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, I don't even think it's issues with Ishoy anymore. It's not even issues. It's just the raw stuff of, circumstances, unfortunately, with life.
Now, if you came on the show late and you're like, what is going on Cool FM? I mean, what is this? This is a new show, both on radio and on Cool FM, Facebook, and to be on YouTube as well on Cool FM. And my guests are John Bateman with the Warrior Healing Center, a volunteer. Volunteers his time to help other people.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's tremendous, though. I mean, I can round of applause for that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you're like, what do you mean?
I don't get paid for this.
Well.
And then I have Jesse Bustamante.
Yeah.
I love that last name.
Thank you.
Bustamante. I'm going to say it a lot. And she's with go ahead.
CBIS.
There you go.
Southeast Arizona Behavioral Health Services.
Oh, man, he got it. Okay. He's taking over the show.
He's taking over.
He's the new host.
I do have to depart, though.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you, John,
Thank you.
for joining us. We're going to wrap it up
a pleasure.
anyway. All right. And
Break a leg.
That's impossible.
So again, Cool FM, and look for this show. It will be aired on the Cool FM website. It will be aired on the Cool FM YouTube channel, as well as Cool FM 104.1 FM. There we go. Go ahead. On the radio. So Robert Ishoy, your host, and have a good day. Thank you very much for joining us.